Hi, class. So we left off doing some proportional relationships, and I think you guys have a grasp of that. So I'm not going to cover that in this video here. But what I am going to cover is going to be the proportions word problems. So this is creating basically a proportional equation where you can find the value of the missing x through a word problem. So this relates to Math Book 3, Math Workbook number 3, and it's going to relate to page 24 of that book. So this is number 1 of that book, so I'm going to show you how to do that here. So it says a car travels 120 miles in 3 hours at a constant speed. Okay, that's important. We will not deal with speeds that are not constant or inconsistent in this course. You just don't need it. Okay, so all of these will be in a constant speed. Now, it's asking how long will it take to travel 200 miles? So what we need to do is set this up in a word problem. We know that we're going to have something like this because this is what we're dealing with the proportions. We have something equals something else. We also know that because this is how we're going to do the problems, we're solving for the missing x, right? So let's figure out what information we do have. We do have one set of information, which is it travels 120 miles in 3 hours. So we know that it takes 3 hours to go 120 miles. So let's go ahead and set up our miles and our hours. So I'm going to put my miles up here and my hours down here. I know that I went 120 miles, okay? And it took me 3 hours. Now, what I have for the second section is I know that we're going 200 miles. Okay, we're going to go 200 miles. So if we go 200 miles here, they want to know how long will it take me. So we're missing the time value here. So I've just set up this problem as a proportion where I'm going to cross multiply because I know that for 120 miles, it takes 3 hours. Okay. And I know that for 200 miles, it takes X hours because I don't know that yet. And that's what I'm going to solve. So now that we have this problem set up, we can just do our multiplication. So I'm going to multiply my 120 times x, and that's going to give me 120x. And then I'm going to multiply my 3 times my 200, and that's going to give me 600. Now, according to how we do our algebra, we know that we're going to divide both of these sides by 120 so that we can get x equals something. And let me see what 600 divided by 120 is. It helps if I turn on my calculator. And that's going to be 5. So now what I'm saying by this equation is that if I plug this 5 in here, okay, I should be able to check and make sure that this is proportional. This is what we learned how to do with the proportions earlier in the day. We did 100 over 3 equals 200 over, now I'm plugging this 5 in here, right? We learned how to do this because we cross multiplied this to this, and 120 times 5 is going to give me 600, okay? And this to this, and that's going to give me 600. So this is proportional. So remember, they're going to give you 3 out of the 4 of the numbers that we're going to need. We're going to be missing the 4th section of that. So for this particular problem, we had 120 miles to 3 hours, and then we had the 200 miles. Now let's see if this will work if we go the other way. Now let's say that we, instead of doing the 120 over 3 like we did before, let's say that we do it the other way. Let's say we don't know which order, which one goes on top, which one goes on bottom, because that's a common complaint from students is that they don't really understand which one to put on top, where to put these numbers. Okay, what I can tell you is that if you ever have, let's say you take 120 miles and 200 miles and you think it's like this, okay, both of these are miles. Okay, so that's not going to be possible. On one side, you need miles and hours, and on the other side, you would need miles and hours because those have to match up. So right away, you know that you've done this wrong. Okay, this would need to be adjusted. So let's look at it a different way. What if we did 3 hours and 120 miles? Okay, so this would be hours, and this would be miles. Now, this is fine. You can do it this way too. You don't have to have the 120 on top, as long as you have one on the top and one on the bottom. And as long as when you go to do this, you match up the hours with the miles. If the miles are on the bottom here, the miles must be on the bottom here. Okay, so that's how you would set up that problem. We don't know what the hours are, so we're going to leave that X. So you can set it up however you want to, as long as you have one side here that has the miles and hours together, and then you have the other side over here where the miles are actually on the same side, top or bottom. So let's go ahead and see if what I'm telling you is true here, because, sometimes I get it wrong too. So if we want to go ahead and process this problem again, just like we did before, we're going to do that same cross multiply here, right? So we're going to have 3 times 200, which is going to give us 600, and it's equals, because we're always going to equal. We're trying to do one side of the other. This is a small algebra problem, okay? And then we're going to multiply across here, and we're going to get 120x. Now, if you remember right, that's exactly what we had on the last one. We divided both sides by 120 here, okay? And we got x down here, and we got 5. So our answer up here, the x is still 5. How long will it take to travel 200 miles? It will take 5 hours. So what this problem says is, it takes me 3 hours to travel 120 miles. If I go 200 miles, it's going to take me 5 hours. Okay, so that's how you solve that problem. Okay, so my pen color is a little light on this one, but let me read it to you. It says, 24 loaves of bread costs $48. How much does 10 loaves cost? This is the same type of problem, but this is going to be on page number 25. So we're still in Math Workbook 3, but it's page 25, and this is number 1. This is problem number 1, okay? So we have to read, what is the question asking us? The question's asking us, how much does 10 loaves cost? Once again, we're going to set up our problem with the information that we know, okay? The information that we know are the 3 out of the 4. Remember, we have to have our loaves on the top or bottom, doesn't matter how you want to do it. And then you're going to have the cost or the price on the top or bottom, doesn't matter how you want to do it. And then you're going to have an equal sign, and you're going to have the same thing on this side. So our loaves, for the information that we know, is going to be 24 loaves. And those 24 loaves cost $48. Okay, we'll just use a little dollar sign right there. That does not look like a dollar sign. We'll make it a little bigger. Okay. So now the other information that we know is 10 loaves. We want to know how much they cost. So we are going to match up the loaves with the loaves, which is 10 here. And we don't know how much it costs. So that's what we're looking for. Okay, so now we have our problem written, which again is the hardest part. Once we get to this, we've done this. And while it's still new to us, this kind of makes a little more sense than what setting up the problem makes, right? Because setting up the problem tends to be the harder aspect of learning proportions in the word problems. So let's go ahead and work this out, and let's do our math here. And we're going to cross multiply here, and we have 24 times x. That's going to give us 24x. We're going to bring down our equal sign here, and then we're going to multiply our 48 times 10, and that should give us 480, but let's go ahead and do it in the calculator so I don't make any mistakes. And that gives us 480. Now, we're familiar with this. This looks familiar to us. We're going to divide both sides by 24, okay? And when we divide both sides by 24, we get x equals 20. Okay, because 480 divided by 24 is going to be 20. So if we plugged in this 20 here, we should be able to test this proportion. Let me get a different pen color here. Let me get black. We should be able to test this proportion right here. We should be able to say 24, not 24x. We should be able to say, where's our original? This one, sorry about that. 24 over 48 equals 10 over, and now we're going to take our x and plug it in here, 20. Now we should be able to start working this out, and as we go cross multiply here, we should see that 24 times 20, let's do it in the calculator. It is late and I am tired, is 480. Okay, so we can put that there. And then 48 times 10 is 480. Now we have a proportional relationship here, so we know that this 20 is correct because that top and bottom number should match. Now again, if you flipped these around and you put the cost on the top and the loaves on the bottom, that's totally fine. However, it's not if you don't put these the same. You must have the same loaves must be on the top and cost must be on the bottom, or all loaves must be on the bottom and cost must be on the top. Okay, so I hope this helps explain how we set these word problems up. Word problems are the most challenging for the students because you really have to think about how you're actually going to set up the entire problem. Okay, so I hope this helps. If you have any questions, let me know.